Well, obviously I had two sets of grandparents. And one on the Calihan side, he was an entrepreneur whom I never knew. In fact, regrettably, my dad never knew him either because he died at a very young age. But apparently an incredible personality. I love reading about what he did as a leader in the city of Rochester, New York, which is where I was raised. My other grandparents were in Pittsburgh, and they were known to me as Nana and Papa Mansmann. There's a wonderful story there about entrepreneurship. And my Papa Mansmann, as a young boy, he came here from Germany at the age of 3 or 4 in the late 1860s with his mother and dad and 2 siblings. And the father he was a school teacher in Germany, and he didn't speak English. So he became a farmer here, and they rented some land apparently up above Etna, and that's where they lived. And there's a little son, my papa, went to school for just 2 years in grade school. And to help his family sustain themselves, he took a job as a child laborer in a glass factory over on the south side. But he did that, and then at some point later, I think around the age of 13 or 14, he got a job at the Joseph Horn Company, which is the major department store that many people remember the name of here in Pittsburgh. And he was a stock boy there, and he learned a lot. There's a quick little personal story that relates to being a business owner, I think. One day, my grandfather was having his lunch, and he had molasses. And Mr. Horn came by and said, "Young man, is that all you have for lunch?" And he said, "Yes, it is." He said, "Why is that?" He said, "Well, because my family is struggling financially." And the following week, he had a 10-cent an hour raise in his paycheck. And so I think that kind of story impacted him to think, "Ooh, I can help. I can not only help myself, I can help other people." And of course, it became family lore about how he was motivated. He went on to work for another company called the Ben Franklin Company, where it was in what we call today a Dollar General type of store. And he became a manager of a store and decided at age 25 to open his own little store in East Liberty at the corner of Penn Avenue and Collins Avenue. It was what they called a dry goods store. And that became Mansmann Department Store. And it was, I remember as a kid, my mother, it turned out, went to Rochester right after she finished school. Mercy Hospital sent her there to do some research for them. And she met my dad, and she stayed there the rest of her life. So I was born there, even though I had grandparents here in Pittsburgh. But we would come down to Pittsburgh, and particularly during World War II, taking the train, we come into the P&LE station on the south side. I can still remember, so glad when that train finally bumped in and stopped at the P&LE station. I was in Pittsburgh, and I was going to see my grandparents, and I could go to the store as a little kid, and the toy department was on the basement floor. There were 3 floors, basement, first floor, and second floor. And I could pick out any toy I wanted. Of course, that was a big deal as a 6, 7-year-old. And so, that whole story of my grandfather is a big deal to me. I have very fond memories of him. And I think he did what I think is such a great American story. He built a business. They had 5 children. My mother was one of his daughters. They had a good life. They had a nice home, and were able to take family vacation and educate their kids. I think that's what people wanted then. That's what people want today. Well, I can't attribute it totally to Papa Mansmann, but because my parents were in business together too. and they had a small business. So I grew up in that environment, and my mother and dad, they struggled through the Depression very much, but they worked their way back, and I was, eventually I was sitting at the dining room table, the youngest of 4 children, and discussion about business and the trials and tribulations, but also the great satisfaction they were feeling about building something. And so between my grandparents and my parents, you don't lose those impressions as you grow older. So imagine how fortunate I've been to have that as a background, and then to be able to go on and be in business myself. So about age 12, I started trapping muskrats in the winter, and I would skin them. After you trap the muskrat, you'd skin it, and they'd take a wooden shingle, and shape it to the size of the skin, turn the skin inside out so it would dry, and then a week or 2 later, take it downtown to a man who would buy them from us. And it was a great little business, and that's what I did during the winter. And in the summer, about the same age, I started playing golf at an early age because of my older brother. And so during the summer, I play golf, but I also look for golf balls. And we lived near a public golf course where I could go sell the golf balls on a Sunday afternoon, and 3 for $1 or 5 for $1, depending what kind of condition they were in. And so I was always thinking about, having a little business operation going. And I think it reflects what I just said before about this environment in which I was raised, the idea of making something happen, and as the phrase goes, earning a buck, was important to me. I went to school in Philadelphia, and Mellon Bank from Pittsburgh came over to interview people on campus. So I ultimately decided to take an offer I received from Mellon Bank, and I came to Pittsburgh, and I went through a training program, management training program, and then I became a lending officer. I was working with companies in the Pittsburgh area, the smaller and medium-sized companies in the Pittsburgh area, which I really, really enjoyed, because I saw a lot of business owners trying to develop their businesses, and it brought back the senses I had about that I had been raised with, to go back to that reference, of people who were working at it. It was not easy, and it became pretty apparent to me. I was exposed to a lot of different companies, and that was it was a great experience. I really did love working with the business owners, but at the same time, I wanted to become a business owner. So I had this issue of how am I going to go from being a lender to being a business owner. When I left Mellon Bank, the organization I joined was developing what we called business schools in those days. Basically, we trained secretaries and bookkeepers. That was in 1970 when I made that change, and 3 years later I became president of it, and then 4 years after that I ended up owning it. So that was my first. I started graduation into going from being an employee at Mellon Bank to having some ownership to becoming the CEO of it, and then becoming the business owner. From there, eventually, I got involved in 3 other businesses. We don't have to go into the details of all of them, but they were, none of them have been particularly large companies, but they're companies about which I have great pride, and I had wonderful experiences with people in those environments. I think as a business owner, eventually, what you realize what really counts is the satisfaction of seeing your clients and your employees feeling really good about doing business with you and seeing employees grow. So and at the end, I used to say to people, really, I didn't care so much about the money. What I cared about at the end of the day, when I put my head in the pillow, was having seen when a person grow and take on more responsibility and execute it and do it with great integrity. I have some very simple philosophies that I try to instill in these businesses. That there isn't a dollar in the world worth lying for, which I think is not only morally correct, but it's good business, because people respect you for that. They realize that over time. The business has to be good for the customers, the employees, and finally the shareholders, but in that order. And it has to be good for all three. If they get out of balance, if one of those becomes the dominant one, the business sooner or later loses its bearings. And so I tried to impart those things in the organizations, help the people with whom I work. And when you do that, I found people responded with trying to do their very best. And everybody wants to do a good job. Everybody wants to feel satisfaction in what they do. And for me, that was my great joy to see people do that. And I still feel that way today. What we're doing in this organization, and I see the people who use our services. It's amazing. Brenda and I met in high school. We met in 1955. That summer, had my little business where I was tarring driveways, so I had a little bit of money, and I bought a 1948 Nash. It was bigger than this room. Her high school was about 7 or 8 miles from where my high school was. And I would drive over there and pick her up and drive her home. And, we really didn't have a romance until we were out of college. And then we were married for 2 years right after college. This July, we will have been married 57 years. And she's been a phenomenal partner. And my example for you and ask you a question about about developing a family and the trials and tribulations involved with that. It wasn't always easy. And there was a time when, after I became president back in 1973 of this company, the reason I became president is because we were out of money, and the people who were lending the money turned to me to help get it solved. And I went home and told my wife I wasn't going to get a salary for 6 months. Now, that's when the rubber hits the road. When you've got 4 kids, and but we pulled together. And she said, we said, we can do it. And the interesting thing is, our kids today, we have 2 who are over 50 and 2 are just under 50. They don't remember that at all. So, how do we deal with a family? I had a lot of help. I mean, the stability that my wife created in our home was really helpful. She's been a phenomenal partner. And Brenda can deal with issues, difficult issues, as well as any person I know, because she has a philosophy that things have a way of working out. And she doesn't spend her time worrying about how they're going to work out. She just makes them work out. When you're 81 years of age, as I am, you realize that that's ultimately the greatest achievement of all. And here we are with 4 kids, and they're all married to wonderful people. We have 14 grandchildren. I mean, what can I say? What prompted me to create an organization that would help business owners? I'm going to harken back to my comment that my greatest joy is to see people grow. I think what I know the most about is how to develop a business, how to manage a business, how to finance a business. So it made sense that I might choose a way to take what I know and develop an organization that's helping others do the same thing and see them grow. I mean, I said earlier, and I think our conversation here, that to go to see a group of our people exchanging ideas, talking about issues, learning from mentors here, it just gives me great joy to see that kind of growth taking place. And it's, at the end of the day, it is this notion that if you feel you're making the world a little bit better place for somebody else, it's probably a good day. What's really been helpful to me is to see that there are those that are that are developing a business or have a business that they need some help from our methodology. I get great joy out of seeing them figure out how to stabilize that business, to accomplish what they want, to pay themselves a fair wage, to have whatever, 1, 2, or 3 or 4 employees, whatever it might be, to be able to help their kids get educated. That's success. Then there's another group who want to grow their businesses. It's easier to talk about specifics about somebody who's growing a business because you have some different measurements. I hate to single out any one of them because they all deserve my applause. My dream is for the impact of this organization starts with helping each individual who comes to us and who participates in the services we have to offer. I want them to realize that they have found a place that truly cares about them, that when they go into the future, that they have an issue, business issue, that they can come to our organization and think of it as their home for solving problems that they don't know how to deal with. I want them to, my dream is that they see us as having the integrity, the talent, and the interest in them to give them our very best. It's I guess it's as simple as that. That's my dream. And if we do that for individuals, they're going to help their communities. And if we do it for communities, they're going to help the larger community. So, yes, we may find ourselves being asked to do it in other cities at some point. But right now, my dream is what I just said. Help these individuals, and then by helping them, they're going to help their communities. Their communities are going to help the greater community. It's not complicated. My family. but I would put it as our success, Brenda and me. When I say that, that's exactly how I feel, but I don't want to omit the fact that I have had the great opportunity to feel the satisfaction for me of developing organizations and seeing people grow. And that's why I'm wanting this organization to do that. I want the world to be a better place when I leave it than when I found it. Pretty simple.